when he looked in my eyes, he said to me, "You were born with blue eyes." He said, "Did your mother smoke?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Did she smoke during pregnancy?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Did her mom smoke?" I said, "Yes." "Did she smoke during pregnancy?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's why you don't have blue eyes." My acupuncturist says to me, "Bryan, I need to tell you that what you've done with your body in the last 10 months is nothing short of remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't know it was possible. I'm learning from you, and you're getting younger." There's still stuff that the 42 years of protein consumption, I still need to clear some of that stuff out of my body.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. We have a special guest on today. This is Bryan. Say hello, Bryan.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Paul. Thank you for having me.
Bryan, I'm really excited to have you for several reasons. But before I get into them, give everybody a little introduction to who you are.
Yes, like I said, thank you for having me on. Thank you to all your listeners. My name is Bryan Mirabella. I'm born and raised in New York City in the Bronx. I went to school, high school here. I went to college here in the city, Hunter College, and I started wrestling when I was 14. So I really identify strongly with my wrestling pedigree because I wrestled for 35 years. And then I was a wrestling coach for children at the New York Athletic Club. And then I became a personal trainer about 34 years ago. And then 7 years ago, I became a breathing instructor because my physiology in my life was really falling apart physically. So that's how I got into breathing. And I can comfortably say, and heroically too, that I've overcome, a degradation of my system that would have led to an early demise. And I believe that you can prevent that from happening. You can reverse it, and you can live a long and healthy life. And that's what I'm doing, and that's what I help people do now.
Amazing, amazing. So, first of all, I have to say, so you, as from a diet standpoint, because we're going to talk about some of your breathing techniques. I want to ask you about your physical training and exercise routine. But from a diet standpoint, how do you eat?
Presently, I am 95% predominantly fruitarian. Um, I when I get bored of eating fruit, I'll have salads. At night, I'll have bananas. Sometimes I'll have them with some nuts. And once in a blue moon, I'll eat cooked vegetables. So the worst I'll go is a cooked vegetable.
And how long have you been
That,
doing that
and
for?
that's not often
How
because even when I eat cooked vegetables, I don't feel very good.
how long have you been eating that way for?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. So, how long ago did you make the switch to a vegan diet?
Vegan, about 8 or 9, but I left flesh 13 years ago.
Okay, so you left flesh, and I guess you went to a lacto, and then you went to 9 years ago or so. You went to a vegan diet. So, what made you go? So, you're on a vegan diet, I assume, eating good amount of cooked food. What made you go from a vegan diet to mostly fruitarian?
Good question. So when I left flesh, I did it for my own body because I would pass gas and it would be horrific. My armpits were terrible. I would go to the bathroom and it would just be horrific. And I was having trouble going to the bathroom. I had irritable bowel syndrome. Sometimes I'd have diarrhea. Sometimes I couldn't go to the bathroom. So somehow I I don't remember what was the catalyst to make me go off meat, but it was just an intuitive thing that said to myself, I have to stop eating meat because I was eating I was trying to be as big as I could from the time I was 13 years old until I was 39. And at 39, I herniated 2 discs. I 90% tore my left biceps tendon, almost off the bone. And that's when I stopped eating meat because I started to learn that it was an acidic diet. And I didn't know anything about the difference between alkaline and acidity, nothing. And then I started researching, and that's when I said, all right, I'm going to stop eating meat. And it wasn't easy. I think the first time I tried, I went 2 weeks and then I caved. Then I made it a month and then I went back to it. So the first year was off and on. And then 12 years ago, because it'll be 12 years this January, so 11 and a half years ago, I gave it up for good. But it took me a year. And then when I gave meat up for good, I was still eating eggs. I didn't even know that eggs weren't bad. Like I was like, okay, I'm just gonna eat eggs. I still was eating cheese. I still was eating breads and stuff. And then as I got cleaner, I started to care more about the animals. I didn't do it for the animals. I did it for myself because I felt like this is not a good healthy diet because I have joint pain everywhere. I can't sleep. I'm becoming incontinent. I'm hurt, again, I'm hurt everywhere, all my muscles and tissues. So I did it to heal my body because I thought I needed to be on an more alkaline diet. But I was still eating a non alkaline diet because I was eating eggs, I was eating cheese, I was eating breads, I was eating starches, and I was cooking my food, even though it was more of a vegetarian diet. I didn't know anything about raw food. And then a company called, I'm not sure when you lived here, but there was an amazing juice place that started here in the city. It was called Juice Press.
Yep.
And when it first started, it was cold pressed juices that Manhattan had never seen. And they were incredible. They were owned by two people. And I had a friend who had a brain tumor. And he went on their foods for a year and he shrunk his brain tumor and it never came back. And that was 12 years ago. So I said, okay, this is what I need to do. But I didn't even realize I was eating raw, Paul. I swear that I wasn't, in my mind, I wasn't like, oh, I'm on a raw diet. I thought I was just on a vegan vegetarian diet. I didn't even have the idea that it was the raw food that was cleaning my body out. And I ate juice press religiously for 2 years, and it cost me a fortune because it was so expensive. And then I went off of it because they sold their business, and when they sold it to a more of a conglomerate, it went downhill. So I stayed vegan, but I was eating cooked foods. I was just eating vegetables all the time. I was making my own foods, just vegetables all the time, basically, and salads. And then I got into breathing, which was 7 years ago. And then about a year and a quarter into my breathing journey, I started to alkaline my blood because, contrary to what a lot of vegans and even raw foodists believe, it's that you cannot eat yourself to an alkaline blood state. That's not true, and it doesn't happen. What happens is when you eat a diet that the food is alkaline, your body isn't producing a lot of acids, so it'll clean itself. But the food doesn't make your blood alkaline. There's only one thing that can do that, and that's how you breathe. Because the difference in one breath can create alkalinity or acidity. So it's breathing that controls pH right now, whereas food doesn't do that. It would take me a year to eat a fruitarian diet to live in a more alkaline state because my body has to get rid of the acids first. So I started the breathing, and it was hell for me because I was not in a good state. I had, like I said, I had joint pain everywhere, but I'd already healed my discs with a chiropractor who does network chiropractic, so it's all subconscious. So I healed my discs without any going to surgery or anything like that, when meanwhile they told me I needed to be operated on. And then after about a year and a quarter of really practicing these breathing exercises, I started to alkaline my body. And all of a sudden, I started to feel like I don't think I'm eating well. And I started to research more of what an alkaline diet should be. And I found Dr. Sebi. And I started really researching Dr. Sebi. And then it wasn't that long after I found Dr. Sebi that he was murdered. You know, he didn't die. He was
Sure.
definitely
Absolutely.
murdered. And then I found Dr. Morse. So as soon as I started watching Dr. Sebi videos on YouTube, Dr. Morse popped up. And I just started overdosing on Dr. Morse videos. And then I hired one of his detoxification specialists. So that person read my iris. They gave me herbs, and I started to clean myself out. And 5.5 years ago, I decided, okay, if Dr. Morse says you can heal everything in your body through this kind of diet, I need help. because my acupuncturist told me that now I had already been vegetarian. I had already been vegan for years. And 8 years ago, I was told by an acupuncturist just from listening to my pulse and looking at my tongue. And she said to me, guys like you have a heart attack in your 60s and die because I was burning up from the inside.
Wow.
So even being vegetarian and vegan wasn't curing me. It wasn't reversing anything. It wasn't until I got on the fruit and the herbs that that started to happen. So I told my acupuncturist, a new guy who I still go to 7 years later, just became 7 years. And I told him what I was going to do. And he said, I don't think you should do this. And I said, why, Dr. Ming? He said, you need protein. I said, Dr. Ming, I guess I never told you. I haven't eaten protein in like 5 years. I take marine phytoplankton. So you've probably seen me talk about it, but I live on marine phytoplankton. I've been on it for 8.5 years. Marine phytoplankton was the first organism created by God, light, sound, and vibration. And we've been able to do experiments in a lab using frequencies where they can grow insects out of frequency. So the earth, the ocean, grew this organism called phytoplankton out of frequency. And then once that organism formed, it had all the building blocks of life, all the essential fats, all the fats, all the essential amino acids, all the amino acids, and all the vitamins and almost all the trace minerals. So I started putting that in my body and I started growing my hair back. I was going bald. My hair started to come back. And then when I went on this raw diet and then my acupuncturist told me not to do it, I said, well, I'm going to do it anyway, Dr. Ming. I respect your opinion, but I'm going to give this a shot. And then 4 weeks into it, he listened to my pulse because I would go every week. And he said, wow, you're changing rapidly. This diet's working for you. Even though I told you not to do it, you should stay on it. So I like that, right? He was seeing, like he's looking at me through a traditional Chinese medicine lens. He's also a GP. He was a former GP. And he's seeing that it's working for me. So he's like, all right, I told you not to do it, but you should do this. You should stay on this. So 6 months into it, or maybe it was more like 10 months into it, because 6 months is when I was raw for 6 straight months. I said to myself, okay, I'm going to go raw for 6 months. So I had fruit all day long. And at night, I had dehydrated vegetable wraps and I would make my own guacamole. So at night, I would stop the detox because for me, the detox was pretty severe. When I first went on fruit, I was ravenously hungry. And people were like, well, that's because you're not eating meat. And I'm like, well, no, that's from what I've learned. The reason I'm ravenously hungry is because fruit is astringent. It's causing my body to go into a detox. And it shows me that I was never absorbing my nutrients. So 10 months later, my acupuncturist says to me, Bryan, I need to tell you that what you've done with your body in the last 10 months is nothing short of remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't know it was possible. I'm learning from you, and you're getting younger. And that was, Paul, that was 5 years ago. So I just saw him literally this morning. I just came from my acupuncturist, and he's just thrilled at how my organs are doing. He's like, you have no chance whatsoever of dying of a disease. You will die of natural causes, which is what you're supposed to. I mean, he didn't say that today, but I asked him questions. I'm like, so you saw that I was burning up. What does it look like now? And he's like, well, you should pass away from natural causes because your organs, if this is 100% great, you're here. He's like, but you were down at zero. And now that you're 95%, it takes a lot of work to go from 95% to 100. People would think, oh, it gets easier. No, it actually, you have to stay more on the course. You have to stay more in that detox type of lifestyle because you got a lot of stuff inside of you. And people have no idea the things that might be living inside of you, the acids that might be inside of you. I've had my iris read. I live in Manhattan. And I have amazing people here in Manhattan. And I have an iridologist who's been doing this for 37 years. 37 years he's been reading eyes. and he does shinjitsu. That's like the Japanese Reiki. And when he looked in my eyes, he said to me, "You were born with blue eyes." He said, "Did your mother smoke?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Did she smoke during pregnancy?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Did her mom smoke?" I said, "Yes." "Did she smoke during pregnancy?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's why you don't have blue eyes, because you were born with a dirty lymphatic system." So now my eyes are like really getting lighter. And I'm not fruit 100% of the time. Because for me, I don't know, at night I need to eat more. I need to feel like I'm eating more. And I don't want to be really, really thin. I'm 20 pounds lighter than when I started this diet. I was 20, I got all the way down to 28 pounds lighter, but now I've put on about 8 pounds because now I'm actually absorbing nutrients. So right now I'm 145 pounds, I'm 5'5", but this is my
How much did you say you weigh?
145 and I'm 5'5". But this
Okay.
is homeostasis for me because I don't eat very much. Now my body is very sustained on watermelon all day, especially in the summer. So I eat watermelon all day because I love it. So I could eat it all day. And then my last meal, I'll have guacamole, I'll have bananas with some nuts sometimes. So I stay raw, but I go off the detox at night. And here I am. I have a lot of muscle on me. I'm not overly big anymore. I used to be jacked, but I'm in great shape. I can move as well as I did when I was 20. I've healed all the joint pain in my body. I have no more joint pain. My breathing has gotten epically better, and my organs are doing in incredible shape. And you know it.
Wonderful, man. That's great. That's great. I got a couple of questions. Thanks for filling us in. I want to ask you a couple of things, and then I want to get into a couple of things you do now to help people. So, how'd you hurt yourself? Your disc, your meniscus, and how'd you hurt yourself? Was it through exercising?
It was through stress from being a child, being under stress, because you have to go back to zero. So it started in the womb when my mom smoked. And then the first 18 years of my life, I lived with a woman who would be considered bipolar now. And it was horrific. So that
Understand.
stress is really, really damaging on the nervous system.
Understand.
And then that nervous system degradation led to my breakdown at 39 because I also wrestled. So I was a bent over athlete. And then I did a lot of powerlifting, a lot of squatting, a lot of linear weights, which just compresses your spine even more. So then at some point in life, it just was a moment waiting to happen. I was carrying packages. I stepped off a bus. And you know, when you misjudge a step sometimes and you have to catch yourself, and I stepped off the bus with packages and I heard it in my body. I heard it go in
Yeah.
my back and I felt the liquid shoot in my body and I was crippled and crippled. I went to my son's stepfather is an orthopedic surgeon. So he got me an MRI and he said, "Bryan, people with your MRI are begging me to operate." And I said, "Yeah, that's how I feel." He said, "Well, this is what we could do blah, blah, blah." And I said, "All right, I'm not doing that." And he said, "Okay, well, what do you think you can do?" I said, "Well, and I said this to him, I said, well, if a starfish can regrow a leg and you could take out half of a person's liver and the liver grows back, then that means I can grow my discs back. But I didn't know how. I just said, because I'd already been on the journey of starting to integrate this more of a holistic approach instead of the mechanistic reductionist approach that I learned all through college and as a personal trainer of just we need to be strong, we need to be strong, we need to be strong, right? Animals don't do that. They play. They play and they get those bodies because they're active. So through my chiropractor and my structural integrator, who's a Thomas Myers master teacher. So it's like Rolfing, but it's called structural integration. I was able to relieve the pressure on my spine, and my discs healed and they grew back, which is possible because any soft tissue can grow back. And And when it comes to my biceps tendon, same thing. It was 90% torn. It was hanging on by a thread. So for a year, I didn't work out my left arm. I just did very small exercises because I know how to work fascia, not muscle. Because it's not the muscle you're working on, it's fascia. So I just used slight dumbbells and I just kept moving my hands in different ways. So I would create different variations of tension around the arm. Because if this is your canal and my tendon was holding on by a thread, the canal will very slowly start to fill in with scar tissue. And then the tendon starts to get a little stronger, a little stronger. But my orthopedic surgeon said, yeah, but your scar tissue is not like a real tendon. It will rip. So you can't do what you used to do. Well, he was wrong. that was that was 16 years ago.
Wow.
And I can do pull-ups. I can pull 100-pound dumbbell rows. I mean, I grew everything back, right? And
Wow.
now my next thing is to uh, fix my eyesight, which has gotten a little better. My nose has opened, right? So now there's still stuff that the 42 years of protein consumption, I still need to clear some of that stuff out of my body. The
Sure.
healing journey never ends. It's a long process, especially
Sure.
when you start when you're like 45.
Sure. Do you get your blood tested often or never?
I don't go to a doctor. I do. I go to a doctor of chiropractor and I go to a doctor of acupuncture, but I haven't had my blood tested in 4 years. I did it 1 year after my fruit diet, and I went to Life Extension in Florida, which they're the best because they do the male pattern hormone tests.
Yeah.
And my blood labs were epic. They were like, wow. And I told him what I did, and he was like, what? He said, your protein levels are great. I said, well, that doesn't have to do with fruit. That has to do with the marine phytoplankton I take, because my body makes its own protein. I don't ingest protein. Now, like when I have nuts, I'm not doing it for protein. I'm doing it because I want to eat something else. I don't
Sure.
want to eat fruit all the
Bes-
time, like 100% of the time. It can get a little boring. That's just me personally.
Besides the marine phytoplankton, do you take any other supplements?
No, and it's not a supplement. It's real food.
Okay. How do you discover that? And what do you have your own brand or which one do you take?
I discovered it by watching Dr. Robert Kassar's podcast. He's the lymph and growth hormone guy in Hawaii, and he had this man on named Compton Ram. And Compton Ram has a company called AscendedHealth.com, and he sources his phytoplankton from the pristine shores in the North Atlantic from Europe. And then when he gets it here in the States, he uses scalar wave technology and he infuses frequencies into it. And he's an anthropological molecular biologist. So he's been to every blue zone in the world. So he knows all of those people who lived over 100 years in these zones in the world. The reason they lived that long is they had specific keystone microbes on their face, in their gut, all over the body. You have these keystone microbes. So now he takes these keystone microbes and he grows them in his lab, and then he puts them into his products. And then those products actually, in those microbes, they regrow your body. So that's how I found it. And so anybody could just go on ascendhealth.com. Now, they are expensive because of the technology they use. So if somebody can't afford Ascended Health, then they could go to planktonholland.com, because he'll get his plankton from them, but then he does amazing things to it. So you can get the plankton cheaper from Plankton Holland, but it won't have the Ascended Health technologies infused to it, but it still would work like a charm.
And you say this has the omega-3s in it.
It has all the fats, all the essential fats. So, I used to take 18 fish oils a day, but that was killing my liver. All of that stuff is killing your liver because you can't take vitamin E. If you go to the doctor and the blood lab said, "Oh, you have low vitamin E," you can't take vitamin E and replace it. The body doesn't work like that. The body is one with nature. So it needs something that's bioavailable, which means you can absorb it, and then it has to be synergistic with your system. And that's what marine phytoplankton is, because everything on Earth came from that organism. So even things like sea moss gel, it's huge right now, but phytoplankton is the granddaddy of everything.
So is it an algae or is it a plant?
It's a microorganism and it's a plankton. So it's not an algae. What Compton does is he has studied King Solomon's writings very intimately, and King Solomon was granted wisdom by God, and he was an alchemist. So Compton learned how to take chlorella and spirulina, which is river algae, light them on fire, break them down into their constituent parts, and then he infuses them back into the marine phytoplankton. So they become bioavailable and synergistic. Because if you take chlorella and spirulina, it's actually not bioavailable to a human's body, right? There are alchemical processes that need to take place. But the reason people don't know that is because big pharma controls the world. And if you talk about alchemy, they call you a magician or an illusionist or somebody who's bad, right? And, that's not true.
Well, I want everyone to understand that Brian is 55 years old, and I mean, he looks 20 years younger than what his age is. Go online and see his body. If you guys think you cannot build muscle on a vegan diet, this man breaks that. Because I always have people on here to show people they're living long, they look great, they feel wonderful, and they're doing a vegan diet. And they all do it. They all have their little things they're doing, but the results speak for themselves. So I'm going to put Brian's links below here, social media and his website, and definitely check that out. And a picture's worth 1,000 words. It's great. What you're doing is working. I want to get into the breathing aspect of things, but before I do that, one more question about your physique. How much time do you spend with physical exercise? How much time do you spend on that, and what exactly are you doing?
Alert from software update.
Oh, geez, sorry.
That's all right. We didn't lose you. You're still here.
Um, not as much time as I used to, because I'm not interested in building. I'm not even interested in being stronger every workout. I'm interested in being a lion or a cheetah and remaining active. So I don't have goals like that anymore, because that would just create more tension in my body as you try to get stronger. So my workouts, I do a 20-minute brain routine in the morning. Then I go to the gym and I do about 10 to 15 minutes of breathing work. And then I do a workout which lasts 30 to 40 minutes. And during my workout, I never allow myself to get exhausted. As soon as I feel like I cannot control my breathing rhythm, which is only through the nose, so I can work out 100% breathing through my nose, which you're supposed to. If you're breathing through your mouth, your exercise is not helping you. Now, people are going to not like to hear that, because they want to push themselves. If you exercise and you need to breathe through your mouth, you're literally hurting yourself, but you can't feel it. It's insidious. So that's my routine. It takes me about an hour and 15 minutes in the morning. And then I set my nervous system up to be in a calm, ready state, because I want to be a cheetah. When the cheetah's in the grass, it's stalking the antelope. It's in the grass. It goes to lift up a foot, and the antelope turns, thinks it hears something, and the cheetah stops. So the cheetah's in a parasympathetic state while it's stalking, right? Because you have to come from a calm state in order to react appropriately to the environment. Now, in Manhattan, if you walk down Broadway and there's a loud noise, 90% of the people are like, and they get very scared and they gasp inside, because they're actually walking around living in a sympathetically dominant nervous system, but they don't have an idea about that. And that's what I'm trying to teach people, because that was me my whole entire life until I started to overcome it. And once I got rid of adrenal fatigue, the wisdom came. And when I had that wisdom, then I said, oh my goodness, I have to stop even, I have to start training differently. I have to stop killing myself. I have to allow my workouts to be appropriately stressful, but not too stressful, right? The stress is just to create blood flow and lymph flow, but it shouldn't be in order to become stronger or faster. If you're a competitive athlete, you have to do that, but those things really aren't very natural. It's the human psyche that created it. It's not what natural was.
So you're always breathing out of your nose when you're at the gym, but traditionally people are taught, like when you do a rep, so let's say a bench press, you come down, or you breathe through your nose, you breathe out, like you're breathing out through your mouth, like you're pushing it out. And you're saying that tradition is not the ideal way to do it.
Right. It's completely wrong. Yeah. And plus, if we take something like the bench press, but we could take a million exercises, that's also an exercise that doesn't belong in nature, right? You're never going to be pushing something straight without moving, right? Everybody's always moving. So I do stuff for my chest, but I will go into a coil pattern and a spiral, and I'll move things using my chest, but I won't do linear patterns because that's just going to compress your spine. And
Mm.
so I teach rotational fitness because I'm a breathing coach, a brain specialist, a personal trainer. I do body work.
And so do you make all yourself available? Do you do only in person or do you do stuff online too?
Well, people can work with me one on one in a one on one setting, or they can join a platform. I have a community. So it's $33 a month, and I have 7 different programs available on on my website. And for less than a quarter of what you spend on your coffee every day, right? If you spend 5 times 30 is 150. Well, my membership website's 33 bucks. And on it, I have programs that you can spend weeks and weeks on and learn everything you want to learn about your brain and breathing and have it be affordable. Because I don't want 100 people that can only afford a little bit. I want a million people that can afford all of it. But if you want to work with me one on one, of course, that's when it's more expensive because it's a one on one setting with my time. So those are the 2 ways I work with people.
Sure. And everybody, you can contact Brian at the links below. So now let me ask you about more specifically the breathing stuff. You said you learned about breathing, changed your life. You were even saying if you're eating a somewhat healthy diet, but you're not breathing correctly, you're not getting all the benefits from the food.
That's
So
right.
give us like maybe a few minute here introduction to like the common mistakes people are making when they breathe, and what is, like you said, you heard this guy talking about the breathing and stuff, and you learned about it. So what's some tips or pointers people could do right away to just say, "Hey, this guy's onto something. I want to contact him because I just did that one thing he said in that video and it already changed."
Well, that's a great question, Paul, and very astute to want to talk about that one point because I'm actually getting ready to do a segment with CBS News next week. First time. It's going to be cool. It's going to be on live. Well, it'll be shot 10 days. It'll be on live TV 10 days later, but this is going to be on network TV in New York City. And I'm pretty excited about that. And the thing that matters most is that people have no idea that they can't breathe through their nose. So they have to open their mouth. Because if you can't breathe through your nose, it means you can't regulate pressure in the back of your airway. So your mouth has to open because it's an emergency breathing system. So the mouth will open when the nose isn't working. Now, very simply, you could do this with me while everybody else does it. So this is how you're going to know whether or not your nose is working. Now, some people will know immediately, yeah, I have trouble breathing. But some people will say, oh, I breathe well. And then I'm like, okay, great. Take your thumb and just gently cover one nostril.
You want me to do this?
Yeah,
Okay.
cover one nostril.
Okay.
And just notice as you inhale, does it feel like a wide open cavern? And don't say anything yet. Or when you breathe in, you can feel that there's a compression, there's a stiffness in the airway. Now change sides because you want to do both before you mention it. And now as you breathe, you say to yourself, well, one side's more open than the other, but even the side that's more open, it isn't 100%, right? And if
Yeah.
we're not at 100%, then we're not living at 100%. Because what did God do? He breathed life into man's nose, not his mouth. So if this isn't working, you have no idea how good you don't feel. So everybody can do that. And then they can go, wow, oh my goodness, yeah, I can't breathe out of one side. Well, that is any animal on the
And when you
planet.
say can't breathe out of one side, you mean you're struggling, or just you if you hear it, or what?
Some people are fully blocked. I was fully blocked. I was
Really?
100% deviated on this side.
Really? So
I,
you went like that, you couldn't even breathe.
no,
Because I could take a deeper. I mean, yeah, I mean, I could breathe. You were fully blocked.
yeah,
And most people are, you're saying.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
95% of the population has a deviated septum.
So
And
that's
then
what it's called medically, a deviated septum.
medically would be called that, but it's not because the nose itself is deviated, it's because the whole body is deviated. So it twists the spine, and the spine's going to be pulled in a certain direction, left or right, which is going to alter the airway.
Now, is there a good chance that if I was eating for the last 30 years, instead of the diet I do eat, because I've been raw vegan like 30 years now, if I was eating McDonald's or standard American diet, is there a good chance when I do that one side would be blocked?
Oh, yeah. The fact that you've been raw vegan for 30 years means you're probably breathing a lot better than the people that I would see. But if we don't, if we're not taught about the physiology of breathing, which we're not, then we don't know if we're breathing well or not. And everybody needs to be taught how to brush their teeth. They need to be taught how to ride a bicycle. Well, they need to be taught how to breathe because it's the most important physiological function. And it just gets perturbed over the course of your life.
So you went from doing that and not being able to breathe out of one nostril to doing the breath work that you do to opening that up, and now you do fine.
Yeah, now I'm about 95% open on each side. Why not 100? Because if your spine has any kind of subluxation in it, you're not 100% breathing the way you can be. And until somebody has a fully free functional spine, they're not going to know what real deep breathing is. And that's my goal, is to unlock my spine.
And do you use chiropractic work to do that, or is it other methods, or pretty much chiropractic stuff?
Yeah, no, you can unlock your spine without chiropractor. That's what standing qigong meditation is. So when they stand up and they hold these positions, it's about lengthening the spine, and the spine will naturally decompress. But if you go to a chiropractor, I have a network chiropractor here in Manhattan, and I've been seeing him for 11 and a half years. And since I've been doing my brain exercises for the last 7 months, he said to me, since you started on your brain exercises, your spine has decompressed more in the last 7 months than it did in our previous 11 years. So that's the goal. It's to unlock the spine. That's why the ancient Chinese proverb is, you are as old as your spine is. And, Western medicine will poo-poo chiropractors because chiropractors can hurt some people. It has been known to happen. But how many people have the allopathic medicine, you know, I don't know,
Sure.
right?
Tell me, to me, like one of my clear uh, signs of health, or the measure of our health, and to get it is all about sleep. That's what a lot of this comes to me as I teach, how to heal everything. Sleeping is a great sign where you're at. Where are you at with your sleep, and where were you at? So, how many hours a night do you sleep? What time do you usually go to sleep? What time do you usually get up?
Another fantastic question, because you're questioning skillfully because you're listening carefully. So sleep is huge. It's the highest time of neurological organization, right? So we need to be able to stay asleep, but we don't need to sleep 8 straight hours. The people that need to sleep that long are usually the ones who are overeating their starches. So they need to stay asleep longer. But ideally, a sleep cycle is 4 hours. So you could sleep for 4 hours, get great REM sleep, wake up, be up for an hour, and then go back to bed. So I struggled with sleep for 25 years. I've been an insomniac. And in the 6 years I was doing my breathing, my sleep didn't get better at all. Not at all. And my breathing got better and better and better. My body got more alkaline, but it wasn't helping my sleep. So then I started in this 12-month long program with one of my mentors, Lois Laney, on brain health and understanding the cranial nerves. And since I've been doing this 20-minute routine every single day since January 25th, I'm sleeping better than I've ever slept in my life. So now I'm getting not like 6 hours, because as a fruitarian, you don't need to sleep that much. Sometimes I get 5 straight hours. Sometimes I get 6. Rarely do I ever sleep more than 6, because when you don't put a lot of gunk in your body, you don't need to stay asleep that long. And, there's something to be said about, do we really need sleep? If we were purely clean, we wouldn't be sleeping either, because there would be no need to regenerate the body. But that's a whole nother topic, right? That's
Sure.
the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest known text to man, staying up for 7 days and 7 nights to activate the right side of the brain and quiet the left side of the brain. But I recommend no one try that.
So, uh, do you ever use an alarm clock when you say you're sleeping 6 hours or 5 hours, or you can sleep 4 and take a break in between and then sleep 4? Are you using an alarm clock, or do you just wake up?
No, I don't. I go to bed. Sometimes I go to bed at 9:30, and I might wake up at 2 or 3, and I allow myself to go to the bathroom, and then I go back to bed. I can fall asleep easy. So when you wake up in the middle of the night, if you have trouble going back to sleep, you block your right nostril and you breathe out of the left nostril, because it's soothing and cooling. And you start to fall asleep again just by breathing out of the left side. And I'm usually up by like somewhere between 5 and 6.
Okay.
So I go to bed nice and early. I try to get a lot of sleep before midnight. And then I don't need to sleep very much. And I wake up feeling incredibly rested every day, which I didn't. But it's really been since I started to activate my sensory cortex, because I've been hit in the head many times, had lots of concussions. And every time you get hit in the head, it damages your brain, and it'll stop your body from functioning the way it's naturally designed. So now that I've been working on my brain, I've been sleeping better than I've slept in the last 25 years. So brain plus breathing plus a raw food diet, I think that's a recipe for a long, long and healthy life.
My thing, I wrote a book called The Daylight Diet, and not everyone follows this in terms of having success, because some people do it different, but most people are in agreement. Going to sleep on an empty stomach is helps you get the best sleep and true sleep, because if you're not, your body's digestion is not healing and building.
Yeah.
So going to sleep on an empty stomach. But I hear some fruitarians, they'll eat all day and all night and then go to sleep. But ideally, especially if somebody's eating a standard American diet, it's not good to eat right before going to sleep or eat late at night.
Agree with
What's
you.
your experience with that? Do you stop eating at a certain time, or do you eat to whatever time you want?
100% I agree with you. So by 7 o'clock, I want to be done with my food. Sometimes if I'm working till 7, then I'm eating till 8. And then I'll try to go to bed 2 hours, 2.5 hours after I eat. But yeah, you got to go to bed on an empty stomach. You'll get a much better night's sleep. Your body will produce HGH when you're asleep. You'll get more deep rest. You'll have a higher melatonin concentration being produced in your pineal gland. Like, none of that should be taken. Those supplements don't work at all. Your brain has the ability to do everything on its own.
Man, I love everything you're saying, and we're running out of time. I want to give you a chance to tell everybody how to find you and what you can offer them. And I want to encourage everybody to put questions in the comments, and hopefully we could have Bryan back on and go over some of those questions. Maybe even do a live session with him one night. But Bryan, with a couple of minutes here, is there anything you want to share to let people know, the viewers know, and also tell them how they can best get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you, Paul. So my website is called Quantum Fitness. So quantum, like quantum physics. And the reason I made it quantum is because of breathing, because oxygen in pranayama isn't just a physical thing, it's an energetic thing, it's the ether. So quantumfitness.org, O-R-G. And then my Instagram account is basically like my website. So it's breath_verse, like universe, breath_verse. And then through my website and through my Instagram account, you can click on the links to either become a part of my community for $33 a month. And the first 2 days are free. So I let people look at the website for free. And then when you join the community, you look at the programs, and when you have questions, you get added to a private Telegram group. So I will coach people live all day long on a Telegram chat so everybody can benefit from it. And then for the people that want to work with me one-on-one, there are one-on-one options that you can click. And right now, I have an offer that was good for all of August, and I'm going to do it for September too. So there's a $300 discount on a 4-session package with me, and I will get to work with people personally. I assess their breathing through Zoom. Unless they live in New York City, they can come to me. But it's on Zoom, so I assess your breathing mechanics. I teach you how to activate your brain. I teach you the fundamentals of breathing. And then I give you a 3-month breathing protocol that you practice on your own. And then in 4 sessions, you have the ability to go out and do what you need to do. Because once you learn how to breathe, you don't unlearn it. And if you practice, you'll have it for the rest of your life. So you don't need to work with me for the rest of your life. If you want a personal trainer, that's different. But if somebody is a really good breathing coach, then you shouldn't need to breathe with me for 2 years. You should have learned how to breathe in 6 months. So on my membership platform, I have a 6-month practice that's built into the website that people could stay on it for 6 months, and they can get told what to do every single day for 6 months, how to assess themselves. And then from there, if they want deeper knowledge, they work with me one-on-one.
That's wonderful. Everybody, I'm going to put those links below so you can definitely contact Bryan and definitely check out his website and videos. If you go to YouTube and just type his name, there's a lot of people that interviewed him and the guy looks great. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So what he's doing is working. Bryan, thank you so much for being a guest on the show here, and we'd love to have you back again.
Oh, I'd love to, Paul, because you're a great interviewer. You had great questions, and obviously your audience is very savvy. And this is where we have to go in life. Now, this is not to say anything bad about anybody who does meat. That's fine. You can be enlightened, but it's just a different level, right? Because enlightenment is right here, right now. But I think, honestly, until people stop consuming death, they won't know true harmony. And that's the biggest thing for me, is that God didn't put us here to have dominion over other things. God put us here to have dominion to protect everything else, not to have it for our pleasure, but to protect it.
As somebody who's not only a raw vegan, but been a vegan for 30 years, I fully understand that. And I also understand that people can't understand until they live it. So I'm right there with you, man. And keep up the great work you're doing. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And until then, everybody have a great day and a great world life.
Thank you, everybody.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.